What is up, my friends, from the Total Debt Freedom world? In today's video, we're going to be covering the question of some of the things that bill collectors won't tell you. The top 3 things, in fact, that bill collectors won't tell you when it comes to the truth about your credit card debt or money. Doesn't matter where you live in the world, this is going to be relevant to you because legislation and laws or bank acts, as they're so called when it comes to the collection of debt, do differ from place to place, even from province to province, like it would be in Canada, for example. A lot of these things stay fairly consistent and true. So number 1, bill collectors, well, before I get into number 1, the thing you need to understand about bill collectors is you always have to consider the source whenever you talk to somebody within the realm of the financial scope. Like whenever you talk to somebody that's an investment advisor, there's always some hidden agenda. You have to kind of follow the money, and you'll often find that they're going to be motivated to sell you products that will either pay them dividends or have a better return for them, so on and so forth. So the same thing's true when it comes to the collection of credit card debt. Is bill collectors will always behave in a way that's beneficial to them. It's pretty true for human nature in general. So they're going to tell you stories and, in some cases lies or overinflated truths. But I'll get into the top 3 because these ones are the most relevant. The first is they're never going to tell you about the limitation period. And what the limitation period is basically, like in Ontario, for example, here in Canada, it's 2 years. So if you incur a debt today and then 2 years and a month go by, you'll still owe the money. It'll still show up on your credit report. It'll still affect your credit rating negatively. But they can't successfully win a claim in court to sue you, to take the money from you, generally speaking. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice here. I'm just speaking from experience. They can't be successful taking the money from you when you defend on the limitation period. And all the limitation period basically is it's put in place because the court system doesn't want to be overburdened or overwhelmed with frivolous BS. And they basically say, look, if you've got a legitimate claim to something, then deal with it, within the first 2 years of it happening. Otherwise, too bad. We're not going to throw resources at this. So in Ontario, if you have a $10,000 debt and it happened 2 years ago and you haven't made any payment or any written acknowledgement of it, for example, here, then they can't successfully sue you on it. So you'll still owe the money. It'll hurt your credit, but they can't sue you on it. And that's something that bill collectors won't tell you. It's different in different provinces throughout Canada. Throughout most of Canada, they've updated the legislation to make it 2 years, but you can either talk to one of our representatives if you have questions on it, or you might want to check your local legislation. Also, if you're in the U.S., same thing. You want to check your legislation to see what the limitation period is in your state. So, number 1. They won't tell you about the limitation period. They'll imply that they can sue you. They'll imply that bad things will happen if you don't pay. But the truth of the matter is, more often than not, they don't. Their claim or their argument holds very little water. They act on the fear of the unknown because most people that are getting a collection call from a bill collector is unsure or unknown of the rights that they have. Okay, so number 2 is you can stop the collection harassment. Again, I'm going to talk about relevant stuff as it applies to Ontario because it's the biggest part of our business and where we help most of our clients. But in Ontario, for example, if you're getting collection calls from an agency and they're calling you on one of these things here, okay, I mean, most people don't even have home lines anymore. We just kind of rely on our cell phones, our smartphones and so on and so forth. But if they're calling you on a device where you're incurring a charge, then all you have to do is say this is costing me money right now. You have to stop calling me on my cell phone. And they have to stop calling you. That's what the legislation says. So it's going to vary, again, from province to province, state to state, depending on where you're at. But there are ways that you can stop phone calls. It would take far too long for me to get in every single one in every different location. But you need to understand that they're not going to tell you that. They're not going to say, just say these words and I'll never call you again, sir, ma'am. They're not going to, reveal what your rights are. What they're going to do is they're going to make up stuff that's going to encourage you to fall into whatever behavior it is that they want to motivate you towards. So, which is paying them all the money right away, in fact, today. And the last thing that I'm going to tell you is, if you've seen some of these movies with people on phones, like usually phone cell stuff, things like Boiler Room and stuff like that, they imply that there's some big shot on the phone. So number 3 is they're not as big as they imply on the phone. I'm calling from the legal department, or my client has done this, that, and the other thing, and I've been instructed to take further action. And the funny thing is if you ask them what the further action is, they kind of stutter and stumble. So you should always be aware that you're not talking to somebody that is some big shot that's actually literally taking up a piece of paper and looking at it and examining your case and looking at your credit bureau. Most of the time they're plugged into a headset, onto an automatic dialer, or some kind of computer that optimizes their time for contact with people. So these computers or these dialers will leave voice messages, or they'll ring until you hit a button to transfer. So they're fairly low-level agents. Sometimes they're outsourced to places outside of North America, like the Philippines or India, where you're not even speaking to a representative at the creditor or the collection agency's call center. So those are the top 3 things that I want you to be aware of when it comes to dealing with bill collectors. We get a lot of calls from people about, the bill collector said this and said that and the other thing. And you got to take it with a grain of salt. Again, when you scratch below the surface and you follow the money and you take a look at where they're coming from, it's not from a place of your best interest or to save you the most amount of money possible, or to offer any levels of flexibility, or let you in surprises like, hey, by the way, there's nothing we can do to sue you today on this, but you still owe the money. They're not going to reveal the truth about what your best options might be. So again, take it with a grain of salt. If you have questions about your credit card debt and you owe more than $10,000, you can give our office a call. There'll be a link below to book a call with one of our representatives. It's a free 15-minute consultation. Otherwise, you can leave a question in the comments section. Of course, smash the like button. Let us know that you enjoyed the video. And if you have any special requests for a video in the future, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for checking out the video today. Have an amazing one. Bye for now.